Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Eglantine Staunton, and in this video, I'll be giving you a brief overview of my article entitled Emerging Norms and International Change: The Responsibility Not to Veto and Its Impact on the Security Council. Since the end of the Cold War, the veto has mainly been used in mass atrocity situations, understood as crimes against humanity, genocide, war crimes, and ethnic cleansing. While France and the UK have opted not to, Russia, China, and the US have used their veto 65 times in mass atrocity situations and are therefore referred to as veto users. The veto has become increasingly criticized as a key factor of inaction, which costs lives and enables mass atrocities. As a result, proposals have been put forward to restrain the use of the veto, and they are now collectively referred to as the responsibility not to veto. I define the responsibility not to veto as promoting a negative duty to restrain from voting against a draft resolution that aims to prevent the emergence or escalation of mass atrocities by building on accepted understanding of what it entails to be a responsible veto power and member of the international community. Considering the positions of Russia, China, and the US, it is very unlikely that it will be endorsed in the near future, even as an informal Security Council reform. However, this article is interested in determining whether it has progressively become an emerging norm, which has led to a degree of behavioral change from the veto users and other members of the international community. An emerging norm is defined here as a proposal that has gathered a substantive level of international support and consensus, but is not yet consistently and collectively adopted by a critical mass as a standard of appropriate behavior. Not all emerging norms will become established yet ongoingly contested norms. Some will be abandoned before they even reach the status of weak norm. However, as this article shows, emerging norms can still have an impact, and understanding this impact, but also how to trace it, is key to fully understanding ongoing change in international relations. I argue that the impact of emerging norms can be determined by looking at both instances of compliance and violation, and I contend that a proposed standard of appropriate behavior can be deemed an emerging norm if we see the following three indicators: an increasing discursive support by a growing number of members of the international community, an increasing justification or denial by actors violating it, and increasing and regular criticism of its violation by the rest of the international community. So, in contrast to established yet ongoingly contested norms, a shift in implementation is not to be expected with emerging norms, and if they occur, they are likely to be unrelated to the latter. The article demonstrates that it would be misguided to consider the responsibility not to veto a norm, but that it is an emerging norm that has a growing impact on the UN Security Council and beyond. First, we can see an increasing effort to formalize the responsibility not to veto and to promote it. In particular, the political statement on the suspension of the veto in case of mass atrocities that was put forward by France and Mexico in 2014, and the Code of Conduct regarding Security Council action, which was put forward by the Accountability, Coherence, and Transparency Group in 2015, are both worth mentioning, since they've respectively been endorsed by 104 and 121 states. Additionally, we can see a considerable increase in the veto users' attempts to legitimize the use of the veto. Beyond discursive shifts, which are very important, we also see new practices from veto users, such as intervening more than once during a council debate, naming and shaming others, and introducing an alternative draft resolution as a way to claim that they are the responsible actor. Finally, we can see that the amount of resistance to the use of the veto has considerably increased over the years, both within and beyond the Security Council. In particular, at the UN General Assembly, calls for increasing accountability and for a solution to the stalemate in the Security Council have led to the passing of a groundbreaking initiatives, commonly known as the Veto Initiative, in April 2022. It forces the UN General Assembly to meet after a veto and asks the Security Council to provide a justification of the veto. Additionally, in 2022 and 2023, the United for Peace resolution was used to address the UN Security Council stalemate on Ukraine and Israel and Palestine. Both initiatives led to the passing of key UN General Assembly resolutions. As a result, the UN Security Council can be deemed to be at a crossroad. Serve your purpose or risk becoming obsolete and marginalized. Through this analysis, this article has not only made key empirical contributions on the Security Council and reform debates, it has also shown how essential it is to study the impact of emerging norms to better understand ongoing change in international relations as it occurs. It has also provided a framework to trace such impact. This framework can be used to analyze other potential emerging norms beyond the field of human protection, such as the responsible and ethical use of AI, global health solidarity, climate responsibility, or even disinformation accountability. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to hearing your feedback about the article.